Welcome back to Building Foundations, the deep dive brought to you by DGI Waterproofing. I'm your host, and this is episode 26.
Hi, everyone. So last time we talked all about some pump backups, really focusing on how to handle potential flooding situations.
That's right, how to manage that water after it's already a problem.
Exactly. But today, we're tackling something that happens when even a little bit of moisture gets through or just hangs around. We're talking about basement mold.
The invisible enemy, you could call it, and it's a huge issue, especially here in Toronto and the GTA.
Huge, and maybe more common than you think. We're going to dive deep into why our basements are such magnets for it, what it actually does, the health risks, the property damage.
And crucially, what you can do about it, both yourself and, well, how we at DGI can step in to fix the root cause.
Yeah, let's start with some numbers because they really set the stage. It's kind of alarming, actually. Nearly half, something like 47% of homes in the U.S. have some level of dampness or mold.
Almost half. Wow.
Yeah. And it's not just unsightly. Studies, like a big one from the EPA and Berkeley lab, they found that living with dampness and mold increases your risk of respiratory problems like asthma flare-ups by 30 to 50%.
30 to 50%. Okay, let's unpack this. Why is this stuff, this fungus, so common and frankly so dangerous? And how do we stop it?
Well, to stop it, you got to understand what it needs, right? Mold isn't just one thing. It's thousands of different types of fungi.
Right.
And they reproduce using these microscopic spores that are just floating around in the air, always, indoors, outdoors, everywhere.
So they're unavoidable, basically.
Pretty much. But the spores themselves aren't the problem until they land somewhere with the right conditions to grow into an active colony. And that needs a specific recipe.
A recipe for disaster, in this case. What's in it?
3 main ingredients. Number 1, and this is the absolute key, moisture, water. Mold needs it to, wake up and start eating and growing. No moisture, no active mold.
Okay, moisture. Got it. Was number 2.
Number 2 is food, a food source. And unfortunately, our basements are usually like an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Huh. Yeah, I can see that. What does it eat?
Organic materials, so wood studs, floor joists, the paper backing on drywall, carpets, cardboard boxes you've stored down there, even just accumulated dust and dirt.
So basically everything in a typical basement.
Almost everything, yeah.
Yeah.
And number 3 is the right temperature. Mold isn't too fussy, but it really thrives in the same temperatures we think 68 to 86 Fahrenheit, which is 20 to 30 Celsius.
Oh, great. So our home heating is actually helping it out.
In a way, yes. If the other 2 ingredients, moisture and food, are present, the temperature is usually just right in a basement.
Now, let's connect this to our specific situation here in the GTA.
Yeah.
Why are basements in this region particularly vulnerable? You mentioned our local environment plays a role.
It absolutely does. It creates kind of a perfect storm. First, think about our weather. We get a lot of precipitation, right? Somewhere between 800 and 1,000 millimeters a year on average.
Rain, snow.
Exactly. And then there's the massive spring snowmelt every year. All that water saturates the ground around your foundation. That creates hydrostatic pressure, basically. Water pushing against your basement walls.
Okay. Pressure from groundwater.
And then you add our famous freeze-thaw cycles. Water gets into a tiny crack in the concrete, freezes over winter, expands. Water expands with incredible force when it freezes.
Right, it pries the crack open wider.
Precisely. So a little hairline crack becomes a bigger crack year after year. It becomes a pathway for water.
So the structure itself gets weakened over time.
Definitely. And then layered on top of that is our summer humidity. Toronto in July, you're looking at average humidity around 70-75%.
Which is way above what mold likes, right? You said under 60%?
Yeah, ideally below 60%. So for months, just the air itself is providing enough moisture in many basements, especially poorly ventilated ones, to support mold growth.
And that's before we even talk about major water events.
Right. We've all seen the news. Heavy rainfall events seem more common. Our storm sewers get overwhelmed. Think back to July 2013, that massive rainfall, or even the calls we were getting just this past July in 2024 from basement flooding.
Yeah, I remember that. So when you get a breach, a leak, or flooding,
mold can start growing incredibly fast. We're talking 24 to 48 hours if the conditions are right. It truly is, like you said, a perfect storm scenario here.
Okay, so it finds a way in easily.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the consequences. What actually happens when mold takes hold, health-wise first?
The health effects are pretty well documented. The CDC confirms things like stuffy nose, coughing, wheezing, throat irritation, basically allergy-like symptoms for many people, sneezing, itchy eyes, skin rashes too.
So annoying, but maybe doesn't sound too serious initially.
Well, it can get serious fast. Mold is a known major trigger for asthma attacks. And for people with compromised immune systems, maybe they're undergoing cancer treatment or they've had an organ transplant, certain types of mold can cause really dangerous lung infections. Hard to treat.
Okay, that's definitely serious.
And then there are mycotoxins. Some molds, like the famous toxic black mold, Stachybotrys chartarum, it can produce these toxic compounds.
So is all black mold toxic?
Not necessarily. Not all black-colored mold is Stachybotrys, and even Stachybotrys doesn't always produce toxins, but honestly, any significant amount of mold, especially black mold, should be treated with caution and probably evaluated professionally because the potential for health effects is there.
Here's where it gets really interesting. What about long-term, maybe low-level exposure, the kind people might live with for years without realizing the source?
That's a really important point. Chronic exposure can lead to conditions like hypersensitivity pneumonitis. It's this inflammation deep in the lungs. People might think they just have recurring pneumonia that antibiotics don't seem to fix.
Because it's not an infection, it's an inflammatory reaction to the mold spores.
Exactly, and there's growing research into other potential chronic effects too. Things like memory problems, difficulty concentrating, chronic fatigue, sometimes called brain fog. It's complex, but the link to long-term mold exposure is being studied seriously.
Wow. Okay, so the health risks are significant. What about the house itself? The economic impact?
Well, mold is literally eating your house. Remember, its food source: wood, drywall paper.
It's breaking down the structure.
It is. It digests cellulose, the main component of wood. So your wooden studs, your floor joists, your beams, they get weaker over time. And porous materials like drywall and insulation, once mold gets established in there, they're usually toast. You can't just clean them. They have to be cut out and replaced.
That sounds expensive.
It can be incredibly expensive. Professional mold remediation, the cost varies hugely depending on the extent, but you could be looking at anything from, say, $1,000 for a small contained area up to, well, tens of thousands. $50,000, even $100,000 in severe whole house situations isn't unheard of.
$100,000. Okay, that's staggering.
It is. And here's the part that really hits home for homeowners. Insurance usually doesn't cover it.
Why not?
Because most policies classify mold damage as resulting from a lack of maintenance. They figure the underlying water issue should have been fixed. So unless the mold is the direct, immediate result of a covered peril, like a burst pipe you fixed right away, you're likely on the hook for the entire cleanup cost yourself.
Ouch. Okay, that makes prevention sound extremely appealing.
Absolutely. Prevention is so much cheaper and obviously healthier.
So let's pivot to that. What can homeowners do themselves? The DIY prevention playbook, let's call it.
Okay, number one, and we keep coming back to this, control the humidity. Keep your basement air below 60% relative humidity, especially during those humid summer months.
How do you do that? A dehumidifier?
Yep, a good quality, high-capacity dehumidifier is essential for many GTA basements, something like a 50-pint or 70-pint model. You need one that can handle the space. And here's a pro tip we always give our DGI clients. Most dehumidifiers have a drain hose connection. Run a small hose from that directly into your sump pump pit or a nearby floor drain.
Ah, so you don't have to keep emptying the bucket.
Exactly. Set it and forget it, pretty much. It just runs and drains automatically. It makes a huge difference in consistency.
Smart. Okay, humidity control. What else?
Ventilation. Stagnant air is mold's friend. Use exhaust fans if you have them, especially in basement bathrooms or laundry areas. Even just running a small fan to circulate air in damp corners can help. And if the outside air is dry and cool, opening windows for a bit can exchange that damp indoor air.
Good point. Number 3.
Address obvious water entry points. If you see small, hairline cracks in the foundation walls or floor, you can seal those yourself using specific hydraulic cement or polyurethane crack sealants you can get at hardware stores. Products like Drylock Fast Plug or Sikaflex Crack Flex work for minor stuff.
But only minor stuff.
Yes, emphasis on minor. If you see a crack wider than, say, a credit card, or if it looks like it's actively red or weeping or getting bigger, that's not a DIY job. That needs professional assessment and likely injection sealing. Call us.
Okay, important distinction. What about materials, like if you're finishing or renovating a basement?
Choose wisely. This is a great opportunity. Think about mold-resistant options. Instead of carpet, which traps moisture and provides food, consider tile, luxury vinyl plank, or even sealed concrete.
Makes sense.
And when you're putting up walls, use mold-resistant drywall. It has treated paper or sometimes no paper at all, just a fiberglass mat. Use moisture-resistant insulation. There are also paints and sealers like Drylock Extreme Masonry Waterproofer that can help seal concrete walls before you finish them. And sprays like Concrobium Mold Control can be used preventatively on surfaces.
Starve the mold, basically.
Exactly. Don't give it the food it loves. And that leads to the last point, basic cleaning and clutter control.
Dust bunnies are mold food.
You bet. Dust contains organic matter skin cells, fabric fibers. So regular vacuuming, ideally with a HEPA filter vacuum that traps spores, and dusting is important. And think about storage. Cardboard boxes absorb moisture easily.
Switch to plastic bins.
Yes. Airtight plastic bins are much better for storing things in a basement. And wash seasonal items like stored clothing or camping gear before you put them away. Make sure they're totally dry. Less food, less chance for mold.
Okay, so dehumidify, ventilate, seal small cracks, choose resistant materials, and keep it clean. That's a solid DIY plan.
It definitely helps manage the risk. But sometimes the problem isn't just humidity or a tiny crack. Sometimes you have a more fundamental issue with water getting through the foundation.
Right. When DIY isn't enough, that's where professional waterproofing, like what we do at DGI, comes in.
Exactly. Our goal isn't just to manage the moisture inside, it's to stop the water from getting in the first place. We eliminate the source of the problem.
So what are the main ways we do that?
Well, there are two primary approaches for full basement waterproofing. The first is interior basement waterproofing.
How does that work?
With an interior system, we typically install a drainage channel, kind of like a hidden gutter, around the perimeter of the basement floor, usually just below the slab. This collects any water coming through the walls or up from under the floor.
And channels it where?
It directs the water to a sump pump, which then pumps it out and away from the house. We often pair this with covering the walls with a dimpled membrane or vapor barrier to direct wall seepage down into the channel.
Okay, so it manages water that's already getting in. When would you use this?
It's often a good solution when digging up the outside isn't feasible, maybe due to landscaping, decks, or tight property lines. The cost is generally, lower than a full exterior job too. Maybe $50 to $200 per linear foot, roughly.
Gotcha. But the alternative is tackling from the outside.
Right. Exterior basement waterproofing, this is really considered the gold standard if it's possible.
Why is that?
Because it stops water before it even touches your foundation wall. It involves excavating the soil around the foundation down to the footing.
A big job.
It is. Then we clean the foundation wall, repair any cracks properly, and apply a heavy-duty waterproof membrane. Could be rubberized asphalt, a dimpled sheet membrane, things like that.
Like a raincoat for the foundation.
Exactly like a raincoat. And critically, we also install or replace the weeping tile system at the base of the foundation.
Weeping tile. Can you explain what that is quickly?
Sure. It's essentially a perforated pipe that runs around the perimeter of your foundation footing, usually surrounded by gravel. Its job is to collect groundwater that gathers down there and drain it away, typically towards the sump pump or a storm sewer if grading allows.
So it relieves that hydrostatic pressure you mentioned earlier.
Precisely. A properly installed or replaced weeping tile system is crucial for keeping groundwater away from the walls. Exterior waterproofing is more involved, more costly, maybe $50 to $300 or even more per linear foot depending on depth and complexity, but it's the most comprehensive protection.
Okay, interior manages water, exterior stops it. What about just fixing those cracks you mentioned earlier, the ones too big for DIY?
Yeah, foundation crack repair is a core service. For structural cracks, the ones that let water pour in, we typically use injection methods.
Injecting what?
Either epoxy or polyurethane foam resins. We inject these materials under pressure directly into the crack. They expand and cure, forming a permanent, flexible, and waterproof seal right through the wall's thickness.
So it seals it from the inside out.
Correct. It's very effective for stopping leaks at specific points. And naturally, at DGI, we offer free inspections to accurately diagnose the crack and recommend the right repair, giving you a clear quote.
Good to know. And all these systems often rely on
the sump pump. We keep mentioning it because it's often the heart of the system, whether interior or just managing the weeping tile drainage. It collects the water and actively pumps it away. Having the right size pump, and definitely considering a battery backup system like we discussed last episode, is non-negotiable protection in the GTA.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered prevention, we've covered stopping the source, but what if? What if the mold is already there? Remediation.
Right. Sometimes it's too late for just prevention. The key thing here is scale. There's a general guideline, often called the 10 square foot rule.
Meaning?
If the moldy area is small, less than roughly 10 square feet, so maybe like a 3-foot by 3-foot patch, think pizza box size, and it's on a surface you can easily clean, a homeowner can usually handle it themselves safely.
How?
First, safety gear is crucial. Always wear an N95 respirator mask, gloves, and eye protection. You don't want to breathe in those spores.
Okay, mask, gloves, goggles, then what?
Use an appropriate cleaner. Bleach isn't always recommended, especially on porous stuff, and the fumes are harsh. Products specifically designed for mold, like Concrobium mold control, work by crushing the spores as they dry. Scrub the affected non-porous surfaces well.
What about stuff like drywall or carpet?
If porous materials like drywall, insulation, or carpet padding are moldy in that small patch, they usually need to be carefully cut out, bagged, and discarded. They're hard to clean completely. Then make sure the whole area is dried thoroughly. Maybe use fans or a dehumidifier.
Okay, small area. DIY is possible with precautions. But what about bigger areas?
If the mold covers more than 10 square feet, or if you suspect it's hidden like behind wallpaper, inside walls, in the ceiling, or in your HVAC ducts, you really need to call in professionals like us.
Why the hard line there?
Several reasons. One, the sheer volume of spores released during cleanup can be hazardous, especially if disturbed improperly. Two, hidden mold requires careful investigation and removal, often involving demolition. And three, if anyone in the house has asthma, severe allergies, or a compromised immune system, the health risks of tackling a large infestation yourself are just too high.
Makes sense. So what do professionals do differently?
When our DGI team tackles remediation, we set up containment barriers to prevent spores from spreading. We use specialized equipment like HEPA filter vacuums. HEPA stands for High Efficiency Particulate Air. They trap tiny spores and industrial air scrubbers to clean the air during the process. We follow strict protocols for safe removal and disposal of contaminated materials and use antimicrobial treatments to prevent regrowth.
And as you mentioned, the cost for that can vary widely.
It really does, from $1,000 up to potentially 6 figures for major problems, which brings us back to
Prevention. It always comes back to prevention.
It has to. It's vastly cheaper, easier, and so much better for your health and peace of mind.
So let's wrap this up. The critical takeaway from this deep dive has to be proactive about moisture control in your basement.
Absolutely. The fight against basement mold, especially here in the GTA with our climate and sometimes aging homes, it's an ongoing battle. But it's a winnable one if you focus on controlling that key ingredient, moisture.
Address the humidity, seal the entry points, ventilate, choose materials wisely.
And if you suspect a bigger problem, don't wait for it to get worse. Get a professional assessment.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about something maybe less tangible.
Yeah.
The mental health aspect.
That's a great point. Living with that constant musty smell, worrying about what you're breathing, stressing about potential damage or repair costs, it causes real anxiety. It can impact your quality of life significantly.
So protecting your foundation, keeping your basement dry and mold-free. It really is about protecting your family's overall well-being, both physical and mental.
Couldn't agree more.
So don't wait until you see visible mold climbing your walls or smell that unmistakable musky odor. If you've noticed damp spots, efflorescence on the walls, high humidity, or you just want peace of mind, especially in an older home,
give us a call at DGI Waterproofing. We can come out, do a thorough inspection, identify any potential issues, and give you a clear plan and a free quote to secure your home.
Our team is ready to help you protect your foundation and your family's health. The number to call is 647-483-2455.
That's 647-483-2455. We're here to help.
Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive on building foundations. We'll catch you next time.